According to legends, King Arthur was a king of Britain. He is a folk hero and a central figure in the medieval literary tradition known as the Matter of Britain. In Welsh sources, Arthur is portrayed as a leader of the post-Roman Britons in battles against the Anglo-Saxons in the late 5th and early 6th centuries. He first appears in two early medieval historical sources, Annal Cambria and the Historia Brittonum, but these date to 300 years after he is supposed to have lived. And most historians who study the period do not consider him a historical figure. His name also occurs in early Welsh poetic sources such as Y Gadadin. The character developed through Welsh mythology, appearing either as a great warrior defending Britain from human and supernatural enemies, or as a magical figure of folklore, and was sometimes associated with the Welsh otherworld Unwin. Arthur is first mentioned in the Annal Cambria, also called the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle of Wales, which dates to the 9th century. It was written in the Kingdom of Gwynedd, and is a collection of annals recording events in the history of Wales from the 5th to 8th centuries. The relevant entry for 517 reads, "In the 6th year of the reign of King Arthur, the Britons were defeated by the Saxons at the Battle of Badon." The exact location of the battle is debated, but it has been suggested that Badon Hill near Bath could be a candidate. Another source from the same period, the 9th century, is the Haustinga, a collection of genealogies compiled by the Welsh scribe. It contains an obscure reference to Arthur, which reads, "Here's the pedigree of the kings of England from L. son of Aidan to L. son of Kenneth, who was slain by the Britons under Artus Rex." The Historia Brittonum, or History of the Britons, is an 8th or 9th century text traditionally attributed to the Welsh monk Nennius. It is one of the earliest surviving books in the Welsh language, and its section on Arthur is the longest and most detailed. It narrates a collection of stories about Arthur's life, including his birth, his victories against the Saxons, his betrayal by his own people, and his ultimate defeat and death. Nyancey's Arthur is very different from the semi-legendary figure of earlier Welsh sources. In the Historia, Arthur is firmly located in the historical record, waging war against invading Anglo-Saxons in the late 5th and early 6th centuries. While some modern scholars have questioned the historicity of the Battle of Badon, the Historia mentions 5 battles fought by Arthur in which the Britons were victorious. The 5 victories are said to have taken place in or around the modern-day counties of Somerset, Wiltshire, and Monmouthshire. There is no evidence that any of these locations were actually the site of battles between the Britons and the Anglo-Saxons. No. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the battles didn't happen. It just means that if they did, there wasn't much physical trace left behind. Most historians agree that if Arthur was a real person, he was probably the leader of a local resistance movement in what is now southern Britain. According to the Historia, Arthur was born in the territory of the Cumbrians in the West Country, where his father, Uther Pendragon, was killed in battle. Uther's sister, Igraine, then married the King of Cornwall, giving Arthur the title of Pendragon by courtesy. Arthur's mother, Igraine, had been betrothed to King Gorloy of Cornwall, but when Uther arrived to claim her as his wife, Gorloy took her by force. Determined to have Igraine for his own, Uther disguised himself as a hairy wild man and snuck into Gorloy's castle. That night, while everyone was asleep, Uther took Igraine and then rode away on his horse. 9 months later, Igraine gave birth to Arthur. Other sources state that Arthur was conceived by Uther and Igraine in a more conventional manner, and that his miraculous conception occurred instead with Merlin the wizard. Merlin apparently prophesied that the child would be great, but that his lineage would end with him because his heirs would all be girls. As a boy, Arthur proved himself to be an excellent warrior and was trained in the arts of war. When he came of age, he married Guinevere, the daughter of the king of the Cumbrians. Soon afterward, he became the leader of the Britons. In the Historia, Arthur ruled over Britain for 12 or 13 years, campaigning against the Saxons during the latter part of his reign. He was betrayed by his own people, however, and was killed in battle. One of the versions of the story in the Historia parallels the later French and English versions in that Guinevere eloped with Lancelot, Knight of the Round Table. And when Arthur discovered their affair, he banished Guinevere while he went off to war. But upon his return, she had become queen, and Lancelot had become the most powerful man in the kingdom. Eventually, Arthur was killed fighting against the forces of Mordred. His illegitimate son and the chief knight of the English royal court, After Arthur's death, Britain fell to the Anglo-Saxons, and the Britons were reduced to servitude. The Historia ends on a bleak note, stating that this is the story of how Britain was destroyed. It was never rebuilt nor recovered during the whole course of the English history. Arthur's popularity in Wales waned after the Norman conquest of 1066, only to revive in the 12th century when he appeared in a number of medieval romances. These tales greatly expanded the legend of Arthur and his knights, but they are not considered to be reliable historical sources. And that's the end of part 2. Please stay tuned for part 3. Thanks for watching.